Good afternoon. We are here today to provide an update on our teen violence gang investigation. Speaking today in this order will be Gilbert Police Chief Mike Soelberg, Major Grant Benham with the Arizona Department of Public Safety, Gilbert Police Sergeant Dave Gale, and Pinal County Lieutenant Leo Aparicio. We have provided you with a list of participating agencies, names, and spellings. At the conclusion of our briefing, we will take questions limited only to our gang investigation. Questions related to other investigations will need to be addressed directly through the agency's public information officer. With that, Chief Soelberg.
Thank you. Thank you for being here today as we provide an update on our investigation into the group teen violence cases in the East Valley. I'm Mike Soelberg, Police Chief of the Gilbert Police Department. Preston Lord's death has highlighted the issues of teen violence that has affected so many of our communities. That is why this has been a united effort by our respective law enforcement agencies to thoroughly investigate these group teen violence cases in each of our jurisdictions. Joining me today are the agencies who have together reviewed cases specifically related to the investigations of potential gang affiliation and whether additional charges may apply. Major Grant Benham with the Arizona Department of Public Safety, Lieutenant Jason Troth, Mesa Police Department, Acting Commander Preston Pierce with the Chandler Police Department, Chief Randy Bryce with the Queen Creek Police Department, and Lieutenant Leo Aparicio with the Pinal County Sheriff's Office. I will be providing you with an update into our combined efforts to investigate these teen violence cases. Arizona Revised Statute defines a criminal street gang as a formal or informal association of people who collectively or individually commit or attempt to commit any felony crime. At least one member of the association must be a street gang member. Before I share the results of our findings, we want to refresh the public on what is required for a group of individuals to be legally classified as a gang. On the screen behind me is the criteria that must be met under Arizona state law. As you can see, the simple act of creating a name and calling oneself by that name is not enough in and of itself to qualify for gang status. Here to provide additional information is Major Benham with Arizona Department of Public Safety, the agency responsible for the State Gang Task Force.
Thank you, Chief. Per Arizona Revised Statute, a criminal street gang member means an individual to whom at least two of the following 7 criteria that indicate criminal street gang membership apply. A, self-proclamation. B, witness testimony or official statement. C, written or electronic correspondence. Paraphernalia or photographs. Tattoos, clothing or colors, and any other indicia of street gang membership, such as extensive knowledge of other gang rivals or specific members, territories, or jump-in process. This is the criteria needed to establish an individual as criminal street gang member. Gang intelligence information is restricted pursuant to 28 CFR Part 23, intelligence information. Due to these federal restrictions, gang intelligence information cannot be shared with the public. These federal regulations serve as guidelines for law enforcement agencies. It contains implementing standards for operating federally funded, multi-jurisdictional criminal intelligence systems. It is important to know that it is not a crime in and of itself to be a gang member. In order to charge a gang member with participating in or assisting a criminal street gang, the evidence must demonstrate that the criminal act was committed to promote or further the criminal objective of the criminal street gang. And with that, I will turn it back over to Chief Soelberg.
Thank you, Major Benham. Through the collaborative efforts by all the agencies you see here today, detectives have concluded that the group known as the Gilbert Goons has met the requirements to be documented as a criminal street gang as set forth in Arizona Revised Statute. We will go into the specifics of this statute in just a minute. We know this question has been top of mind for many and we appreciate everyone's patience while this matter has been exhaustively investigated. The next question is whether or not evidence exists to submit charges for participating in or assisting a criminal street gang, in addition to the charges that each agency has already submitted related to their group team violence investigations. The information on the screen outlines the criteria that must be met under Arizona state law. Each of these law enforcement agencies here today have reviewed their investigations involving identified members of this gang, and based on the information available at this time, there is not sufficient evidence to submit additional charges of participating in or assisting a criminal street gang. In a few minutes, Sergeant Gill will provide information and examples on what is required by state law for these additional charges. It is important to note that although the criteria has not been met at this time, the gang intelligence information is available to the county attorneys as supplemental information that may assist with their prosecutions or sentencing upon conviction. As with any investigation, if further information or evidence is discovered, it will be reviewed and to determine if additional charges are warranted. We again ask for any community members who have information related to teen violence to please immediately contact our agencies. Another important clarification needs to be made. Although the Gilbert goons now have been designated as a gang, they are classified as a hybrid gang. This differs from a traditional gang, which will be explained in just a minute. Now I'd like to introduce Gilbert Police Sergeant Dave Gell, who oversees our street crimes unit, which led this multi-agency investigation. He's going to provide some additional background information on how this investigation progressed.
Thanks, Chief. As a result of the influx of information received by our agencies after President Soelberg was killed, Gilbert Police Department, along with Queen Creek, began investigating the group known as the Gilbert Goons in November of 2023. Shortly after, collaboration began with the agencies that you see here today: the State Gang Task Force, Mesa Police Department, Chandler Police Department, Queen Creek Police Department, and the Pinal County Sheriff's Office. The Gilbert Goons was established in the town of Gilbert, but members of the Gilbert Goons live in various East Valley cities. In its early stages, this hybrid gang primarily consisted of individuals who attended East Valley schools and participated in underage drinking and the use of illicit drugs. The group ranged in size, and initially its members participated in a fight club type of agreement. Over time, members engaged in other criminal behaviors. East Valley agencies had prior knowledge of another group of individuals from various East Valley cities identifying themselves as Jackwood Mafia or JBM. Our agencies took prior and extensive enforcement action on this group as well. What's important to know today is that information received through the investigation officially categorized them as a criminal hybrid gang as well. I would like to explain the difference between a hybrid gang and a traditional gang. As you can see on the slides behind us, you have a hybrid gang and a traditional gang. Hybrid gangs are very hard to document as a street gang. As you know, your traditional gang usually has one race or one ethnicity, and they have a territory that they claim. Hybrid gangs are usually mixed gender, mixed races, and all various ages. Also, your traditional gang has a code of conduct, typically. Hybrid gangs are mostly juvenile gangs, and they have no code of conduct or no hierarchy. The members also claim and participate in multiple gangs in your hybrid gangs. This is done to stall law enforcement on the documentation process, where traditional gangs, they stuck to their territory or their barrios or whatever they have, and they were proud of their gang name. Hybrid gangs also work with other criminal gangs that you may not see. You may see a car full of different gang members together in a hybrid gang, where traditionally you wouldn't see that. There's no specific colors, symbols, hand signs, territories, or anything such as that in a hybrid gang, where traditional gangs usually have a standard color, a gang sign, or something to that. And the hybrid gang is always evolving, and the names are changing. Since November 2023, detectives conducted more than 100 interviews. They spent hundreds of hours reviewing video footage, social media posts, and other evidence shared with the police department. It's important to know that all the group teen violence cases involve members of these two, not all of the group teen violence cases involve members of these two identified street gangs. None of these combined investigations by any of these agencies has shown the necessary evidence to support charging, participating in or assisting a criminal street gang. To charge participating in a criminal street gang, you must prove the involved subject or subjects committed a felony offense in furtherance of the criminal street gang. I'll provide an example. We'll talk about a documented gang member that we know standing on the corner selling illicit drugs. The money he makes from those drug sales, if he keeps it for himself and pays the bills at his house and gives no money to the gang, is not a gang charge. He's not participating in the gang. However, if he sells those drugs, takes that money, gives it to the gang, and the gang utilizes those funds to further promote that gang's agenda, now he or she can be charged for participating in assisting the criminal street gang. Next, we'll have Pinal County Lieutenant Horacio.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon. As Major Denham mentioned, due to intelligence file restrictions, we are very limited in the amount of information that we can provide regarding these hybrid gangs. The information that was just provided is the extent of the information that we can legally provide. Although the information that can be shared is highly limited, one thing we do know is you can turn the news on. You can turn the news on without seeing, I apologize. One thing we do know is that you can't turn the news on without seeing local or national news coverage on teen violence. The bottom line is clear. Our youth are struggling and they need our help. This is why our agencies will continue to partner and work together to combat teen violence. Moving forward, we also ask that parents and community leaders remain engaged. We cannot solve this problem alone. Chief Soelberg will provide a final summary. Thank you. Let me clarify an important fact. There have been numerous media stories that have inaccurately portrayed all of these teen violence cases as being goon related. That could not be further from the truth and continues to spread misinformation. Additionally, many of these reports also omit key information related to when cases were actually reported to the police departments. In numerous cases, some media reports have omitted the fact that there was a significant delay from when an incident occurred and when it was reported to the police. Again, it is important to note that not all of the group teen violence cases involve members of these two identified hybrid gangs. Before we wrap up, I want to thank our law enforcement partners who are here today for their tireless efforts on this investigation. It's been a long 6 months for our communities, but rest assured, our work is not done. Pursuant to federal restrictions which restricts the release of gang intelligence information, we cannot tell you who these gang members are, but we can tell you that they are known to all of these agencies here today, and we are watching them and anybody associated with them. They will be held accountable for their criminal actions. Moving forward, we will continue to work together to ensure our communities remain safe, and while we have concluded our gang investigation, we stand united in combating activity and violence in our East Valley. Sir, Trey.
At this time, Chief Soelberg will now take questions you may have. We will have one microphone, which I'll retrieve for a minute. Just please raise your hand if you do have a question. As a reminder, we are not able to answer any questions today about specific cases or gang members. If you have questions about specific cases, please contact the agency's public information officer. Your questions today need to be focused on our gang investigation. So with that, Chief.
Hi, Chief. I'm Bianca Bono with Channel 12, for those I haven't met. I want to go back to the example that was given about the gang member who was selling drugs on the street corner. If there were multiple gang members all belonging to the same gang, all selling drugs together on the corner, would that then lead to gang charges?
So each case is unique. We would have to look at the evidence available to show that whether it's one person or 5 people, what, as the sergeant mentioned, what are they doing with those proceeds? How is it facilitating that gang or that criminal syndicate? In any case, whether it's drugs, assaults, or any felony act, we have to show that connection between that felony act and the furtherance of a gang or the criminal syndicate. So we've got to look at the evidence. So I can't just say you need this number or you need this or that. We have to look at all of the evidence, build our case to show their actions are in furtherance of the criminal activity of that gang.
Chief, I'm Morgan Lowe from Channel 5 and Channel 3. Question here. It sounds like you're saying that there were at least these 2 hybrid gangs operating on your streets. By looking at the dates of the cases, this has been going on for a while. How do you explain the disconnect between what your officers were seeing and the fact that they missed that there were these 2 gangs operating on your streets? Does that disconnect concern you?
So I would not describe it as a disconnect. I would say that the investigations, not only our agency and other agencies had, we were actively working teen violence cases. And the information that we had prior to Preston Lord's death was much different than what we have now. We mentioned in our statement that we had information about the Jack Boy Mafia. They were not identified as a criminal street gang at that time. And we were actively pursuing charges on those individuals as a group, not as a gang. And as we had additional cases, we continued to investigate those regardless of their gang affiliation. There was no mention, as I've mentioned numerous times, prior to Preston Lord, there was not a mention of the Gilbert goons in any of our investigations. After Preston Lord was killed, there was an overwhelming amount of information, not only provided to us, but to the media, about that term and that group and that association. And that's what we began investigating in November. What is that association and how are they connected to any of these assaults?
A quick follow-up. Lots of interviews done, reviewing social media. Has this investigation into this gang, has the investigation into the teen violence put a strain on your resources, and has that resulted in any other cases falling by the wayside or not being closed out as quickly as you would like?
No, obviously, every case that we have, we put in importance on getting that thoroughly investigating and bringing justice as quickly as we can. Each case is different, it's unique on what those different parameters are, and making sure we have a solid case to present. Obviously, as you have an influx of different cases, it does create an impact on your department, but not at the sake of another case. We keep working all of our cases. It's not untypical for a detective to have 10 to 15 cases at any time that they're constantly working.
Chief Soelberg, can you explain if there aren't going to be they're not labeled a criminal street gang, and you can't get enhancements on the ones that you've locked up already, or the ones that are facing charges, and the beatings and the murder of Preston Lord, what is classifying them as a hybrid criminal gang do for you in cases ongoing and upcoming?
Yeah, so they're a criminal street gang. The hybrid versus traditional is just more of an educational there's different, the way they operate are different. And so there's not a different legal classification versus hybrid versus traditional. But in this case, as you mentioned, we are unable to charge these individuals that are involved with these gangs with additional charges of participating or assisting in a criminal street gang. As I mentioned, this information has been provided to the county attorneys. At this time, there are no pending reviews from our agencies for them to determine if additional charges could be filed. However, they have this information and they will look at their cases and determine how, if at all, it can assist each of their cases. But that would be a question you have to ask the county attorneys. Going forward, if there's any commission of a crime by any of these individuals, again, we still have to not only prove the crime, but also prove that it was in furtherance of that gang activity in order to get that participating or assisting in a criminal street gang.
Just a follow-up, and is there a reason the county attorney's not here?
We're talking about our investigation and the fact that we don't have charges. She's not here. And granted, we have two counties we're working with, both Pinal and Maricopa County.
Hi, Ashley Hilton with ABC 15. I just want to clarify a little bit of the timeline. So when did your officers first maybe take a report or hear about Jack Boy Mafia or the Gilbert goons or the term goon?
So Jack Boy Mafia, I don't have the exact date that we started receiving that information, but I can tell you we were aware of them, but they weren't a gang. There was a group of individuals that had been using that name, but they did not meet the criteria for a gang at that time. And so we had numerous cases that we have been investigating with them over the past couple of years. And then with the Gilbert goons, as I mentioned, after Preston Lord was killed, that's when we started receiving the information and we started investigating in November of 2023.
Just sort of follow up on that. Could more have been done if you were aware of Jack Boy Mafia to stop this hybrid gang from becoming possibly hybrid or to prevent the assaults that the East Valley has seen?
So with the Jack Boy Mafia, as I mentioned, we were aware of them. They weren't a gang. It didn't change the way we conducted our investigation into them. We made arrests of those individuals. As I mentioned, as we talked about, we can't identify who those individuals are on either side, but we actively worked those cases and made arrests throughout the last year and a half in those cases.
We have two more questions.
Hi Chief, Casey Gomez with Channel 25. You said you can't tell us the names of who has been into these two hybrid gangs, but can you tell us how many from the arrests that you've done have been into these gangs, and then how many more arrests do you expect to make in connection to them?
I cannot. So due to the restrictions of the criminal gang information, I can't reveal how many, who they are, where they live, where they go to school, if they're out of school. I can't reveal that information, but what I can tell you is that we do know that information, all of our agencies, and any activity that they commit, they will be held accountable, and we will pursue, if possible, the criminal street gang charges.
All right, this will be the final question.
Hi, Elena with the Arizona Republic. I know this announcement comes today, but can you tell me when this designation of this gang happened?
So I can tell you that it was in 2024. I know that's kind of a vague answer, but there is a process in order to classify someone as a gang and then classify the individuals as gang members. So as you're aware, we started this investigation in November of 23, and now being May, it's took roughly 6 months to conclude this investigation. But I say we concluded the investigation, it's not done. We will continue to watch these individuals and look for additional information that can further any additional cases.
Was it in the past month, or I just want to know a timeline of like when you're like, yeah, they're hybrid gang or
So-
street gang?
I would love to answer that, but I'm gonna classify that as part of the information, because as we collect information through interviews, photos, videos, as we collect all of our information, we have to be very careful about statements we make about when, where, and how we classify an individual as a gang member, because we do not want to reveal the information or how we obtain that information. And so that's why I'm being vague about the answer. But it's been a process for us over the last 3 months, 4 months to get these documented. As the Sergeant mentioned, we've done over 100 interviews regarding this investigation. All right, thank you for being here. Our PIOs are here. If you have additional questions, you have their information, please get with them, and thank you for being here today.